Well, I actually thought that was going to be a couple of one thing to that makes sense.
All right, I'm gonna call May 8th school board meeting to order, and we have a quorum. Lacey is sick, and so is Tim, so Lily's sick, so we're gonna skip that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, lots of visitors tonight. Nice to see all of you out there tonight. First thing we need to do is
I move to approve the agenda.
Second that.
all right, all in favor? All right, everybody. All right, and then the motion for the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second. The race down there.
I know, I was trying to, you know.
Okay, Tim, all in favor? All right, motion carried. All right, next we have our special presentation, and we have a student representative tonight.
Hi, sorry everyone is digital tonight. So, this weekend we have our spring bulldog market on Saturday, May 11th, starting at 9, it ends at 2. And you can get more information about that on the website, high school. We have conferences starting on May 15th. Come be part of the return of the bulldog pageant by supporting the student dodgeball tournament fundraiser, and you can even sponsor a student. Tickets to play or to buy back are only $1, and you can help your favorite grade level team while donating to a good cause, the Children's Miracle Network. Hot dogs are first come, first served between 5 and 6, and dodgeball starts at 6:10 p.m. AP testing started yesterday and will continue through the rest of this week and next week. Girls flag football will be in the state championship on May 11th. We are hosting a paint night to help support the student trip to Italy in 2025. Prom at Emerald Valley is on the 18th, and Vintage Hollywood is the theme, so that's coming up. We have our NHS induction ceremony on May 23rd at 6 p.m. and the outdoor club's having a field trip to Smith Rock on the weekend of May 25th. And we have senior awards and scholarship night May 30th at 6 p.m. and lots of great student activities and field trips listed in the principal report.
Thank you.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
About Mr. Bulldog, so are we doing the pageant, or are we doing events? To do, or Jen?
Not quite sure about it. So, this year, we're just doing a reintroduction of the Bulldog pageant, formerly Mr. Bulldog. Tiffany Thackera has taken that on, as lead. She was, working on getting some videos that we can shoot out to the kids. I'm really excited to see some vintage Mr. Bulldog videos. So no, this time around, it's just, we're combining it with conferences, doing the dodgeball game as a way to reintroduce it, get some excitement about it, and just raise what money we can during the Bulldog game. So $1 to buy in, $1 a ticket, so you can get in once, or if you think you might get out a lot, you could buy $50 for the tickets and just never leave the floor. So the idea is whichever grade level after 2 games has the most students still standing on the floor, then they get to play the undefeated staff.
Interesting.
Yeah, I didn't throw that out there, Malachi. We are undefeated. So if we're coming at 7:30 to watch that game, you don't come at 6 to participate.
What was the date on that again?
What's the date on
The 15th. We're gonna do hot dogs, first come, first served, starting at 5, and do open doors, just to meet and greet. And then you can start buying tickets at 6. So if you would like to support a particular grade,
Yeah.
buy some tickets.
So we get to pick a student, like who I think has the best honor,
You can, absolutely. Or you can just support that whole team and be like, okay, if you get out, I'm buying in.
Sure.
I'm
I
buying
like
in.
this. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Right. And then we have a presentation. Sorry, Henry Anderson.
And it's actually gonna be Zach Anderson. That's very.
Okay, so you're not, all right.
But both are social studies teachers.
Okay,
And that was some basic information for our National History Day trip, background. Objective up here for everybody. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So, yeah, our, National Today program is part of a national group that's been going since 1974, to encourage students, as they put on their website, to study history, learn about the past, and make connections to their own lives and times. This program is celebrating its 50th year and has over 500,000 students nationwide, and some international students as well participating. Kendra and myself have been considering this program for a while. My mentor teacher at an old school had been doing it and pestered me to do it for a while. And this year, the Oregon Historical Society sponsored a program for rural educators to try to grow the program statewide. So we both participated in that, met with Zoom, over Zoom links with other educators and the OHS staff to kind of learn how to do the program. And we introduced it in all of our classes for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade at the middle school. And so the students had an opportunity to create projects based on their own original historical research, either creating a kind of a standard exhibit board or a documentary, a website, create basically a skit, or do an old traditional research paper. And out of our students, the kind of the first go around, we had about 30, 35 that we were like, these are really great, we'd love to take these to state. So we took them to state competition in Salem on April 13th. And one of our groups, our 6th graders, got 2nd place in the group exhibit board out of over 300 students that were there in Salem that day. And that qualifies them to go to nationals in Washington, DC, technically University of Maryland in College Park, which is like 15 miles outside the net capital. So it's quick in on the train. And there was financial support from OHS. The students all qualified, and several of them applied and got full funding for their trips, including airfare, lodging at the university, and their entry fees. And that's going to be on June 9th through the 13th. We're able to take them both to kind of celebrate their project and also to kind of help grow the program. We're hoping to do this every year going forward, and using kind of as an incentive to get the kids excited, like, hey, last year our kids in our first year got to go to DC to the national program, so we're hoping to use that as a program builder as well. So and there's a little bit more detail here about some of the other opportunities. The trip is set up to, there's a competition day, but there's a couple other days where the kids will be able to go into DC. And we'll be contacting our congressional delegation to set up tours at hopefully the Capitol and the White House if we can get those arranged in time. And so we're hoping to build a program that also allows, taking them to DC to kind of connect in a few years when they take their 8th grade social studies, which is US history, to kind of make those connections there as well. So thank you. Any questions?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So who gets to go with them?
So I'm gonna be the teacher sponsor, and then I think several of their parents are also joined up to go. So,
Very nice.
yeah.
Very nice. Well, thank you.
So
Great.
thanks.
It's exciting. Now we have Corey Lemay. I wasn't really going to use that color, but. What you're thinking. And a few. Yeah. So nice to see all of you.
So the timing of this request is a little different than it has been in past years. I've been convinced, instead of waiting after the current trip and doing it in the fall, to kind of build on current excitement, especially with like our current trip to Costa Rica this June and Italy trip next year. And also to give families a chance to kind of lock in a lower price, a lower monthly payment. So we're gonna give a spring launch a try if you all approve. Kind of, cost of everything has gone up. So looking at like cost of different trips, they're all pretty much the same. And so I thought I would go for somewhere new. Looking for a trip to Peru in 2026. It does have a service and language immersion component too, which the last couple of trips have been that, and I think it adds just a more profound experience for students. So, I'm really excited about this. Peru is like a magical, country with deep cultural, historical roots. So, the part of the trip is going to Machu Picchu, which I think is just like one of the wonders of the world. So, I personally haven't been there either, so it would be, really cool to experience this with students. And then I think the service part of it, spending a few days with the community and getting to interact with them on a more personal level, is really a really special piece of it. So, yeah, so, and, these trips tend to be, they are pricey. I think they're worthwhile. They cover everything. But they're still spendy for a lot of families. So I still I'm gonna be able to offer some scholarships to help pay for that. And I've also connected with, the local company called CMS, which is not CMS, but, Crowd Management Services. They work at the U of O at Austin and Matt Knight, doing like ticket check-in, bag checks and stuff like that at big events. And that's gonna be an ongoing fundraiser that we can do season after season, and they pay us $20 a person per hour. So each event is like 4 to 6 hours, so that'll be a really nice like fundraising opportunity that's open to any students who want to go on the trip that want to make some money to help pay for it. So I'm excited about it. Finally, solid fundraising connections.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So questions? We're just questioning ourselves about what we're doing.
How they've been get in on church, they're trying to figure out how they get their way in.
Yeah. Well, if I get enough students, there's lots of chaperone needs.
Do you know what the community service, activity will be? Do you just want to?
No, so, we'll know like when we get closer to the trip, but what's nice about it is that it's not, they want it to be something that actually benefits the local community. And not just something that's like superficial, So they really work with like local nonprofits and find something that is like immediately needed in that community when we're going. So it'll be something that's actually valuable, like on both sides. And so, yeah, we wouldn't know exactly, but I think some examples in there were, like garden building or path building or something like that. So something maybe so like helping a village build up something that they, need there.
And this is for the kids who are in the Spanish classes, correct?
Yes, technically any student at the high school is eligible. I advertise it school-wide, because it is a language-based trip. Most kids who want to go have taken Spanish or will have taken Spanish by then, but technically anyone could go. You could probably set up
I'm gonna encourage Logan to start taking Spanish.
Yeah, I mean, I have a student who's going to Costa Rica in June with me who has not taken Spanish yet, like he hoped, but he didn't, and he's still like, he's doing it, so. He'll get a jump on Spanish one.
Are you gonna come give us the presentation?
Yeah. Yeah, June 25th, and we'll be back, like at midnight, like 1 a.m., July 4th. So, yeah, we'll do a presentation in the fall for y'all. Okay.
So I'm gonna move to amend the agenda to move action, new business, item 4 and 5 up in the agenda so we can approve them now so that you guys can go. So just need a second. I second that.
All in favor of approving items 4 and 4? Okay.
Yep.
And then all in favor of approving item 5? I don't know which one we're sitting for. For the agenda 5. Okay, all right.
Okay, you guys are officially.
Yeah, you're officially approved. So if you would like to not stay, you don't. I mean, it's really fun to watch us like up here and like do all our things, but, and when we don't know what we're doing, it's more fun. So, like that. All right, next is the CMS science curriculum presentation. So we're gonna project it and we have our science team present.
Here's a. Yeah. Right, Jody Ballard. Thank you. Never see me behind spots. Good evening, I'm Joy Reed. I've been a teacher in Creswell since 2002, and then I was a student here before that. Thompson and Baltrish, also Creswell student. This was our team for the adoption committee. So at Creswell, there's one teacher per grade, so we were all involved, and then we have Mrs. Johansson and Mrs. Aguera also helped us. And even though I've been here for quite some time, I've never actually gone through a formal adoption, and so both Mrs. Aguera and Julie Johansson were very helpful in making sure that we were following the process correctly and provided solid leadership on that. So we had our adoption timeline. And one of the biggest things out there was that it was important to us to pilot another program. And so we piloted something called Within Syed. And then when it came down to it, we all agreed that STEM scopes, which we'll be talking about, was the best match for us. We also feel like that leads in really well to the high school curriculum. Scott and I, through the rural science teachers, had a meeting over there with all of the high school teachers, and they showed us some of the lessons that they do, and they're really solid science program over there, and we feel like STEM skills will prepare the students for that. And build on that. There are a bunch of approved science programs. We went to the ESD, got to dig through them all. We also talked to Dustin Dawson, who's the science specialist at the ESD, wanted his opinion. And then that's when we felt like floated to the top STEM scopes and Open Syed Carolina specifically, and that's an open source curriculum, and Carolina just put all the lessons together. So we wanted to check that one out. And then you are well aware of the Creswell School District vision and mission, preparing students for success. And this is how STEM scopes fell as far as the analysis by the state, so it's very solid. And then in order to make sure that we were looking at the things that we valued, we had 9 priorities, and then we'll go through just quickly each one of those priorities. And that's okay. The other one had a check. I'll just show you.
We went away from this one because it's hard to see. Although it looks better up here.
So we went, yeah, you can kind of see it, but we went with the, every unit starts with a phenomena of some type, like that makes kids question what's going on. And the one we switched to was the one where it's a little chick that's hatching, and it's a little video about a chick hatching. And then it asks the students, so how does a chick breathe before it's hatched? And so that's the guiding question, is how does it get energy and when it is developing inside of the egg? And the answer is the egg actually has microscopic holes in it where the oxygen comes in, and that's how and I had one student that knew that, so that was pretty cool. But well, maybe 2, but so that's what every unit starts with that. And they all have, you see in this one, there's a lot of questions, and in this one also, it has a lot of questions that guides into the activities that they'll be doing. One of the last questions on here was, well, how do you know how many calories are in certain foods? And so we did a lab to measure that, and this was the lab that we did to measure that. The kids are burning a cashew, so it's a cashew that's on fire. And there's a can of water, we put 100 milliliters of water in there, we measure the temperature, we burn the cashew until it becomes, charcoal and doesn't burn anymore. And then you measure the temperature of the water again, and then you find the difference, and then you divide by 1,000 and blah. So there's a lot of math involved for the kids as well. And to find out how many calories are in the cashew. So, the kids really enjoyed this activity, and they did a great job. I was worried about the math with them because it was some tough math, but they did an excellent job.
And that's one of the real advantages of STEM scopes is that it has a lot of hands-on activities. I always tell the students at the beginning of the year, you should expect to do 2 to 3 laps every single week because that's how this curriculum is based. So there's that example up there that Anna put up, but then there are also a lot of simulations that are used, and the curriculum uses, they're called PHET, P-H-E-T simulations that are put out by the University of Colorado. They have things like lasers that you can turn on and shine these lasers at different things. There are simulations where you're looking at solar system and you can change the mass of different objects in the solar system. You can change distances between these objects in the solar system, and then watch how it would affect the real world, plus all the other additional hands-on activities. Sometimes my kids complain too many laps. It also integrates other subjects. Each of the units will have something like this down at the bottom where it talks about, here's how you can incorporate math, language arts, here's some intervention strategies if you have students that are struggling. And then a research option as well, where you can take that, excuse me, take that and go with that as well. And then there's always a lot of group discussions. So this is an example of one of the lessons, and this is the teacher version right here that we're putting up here. And you can see that, they're saying, do these couple of things and then start the class discussion on number 3 is where that is. And they also provide you sample answers. And a lot of the times it's like accept all answers, or this is just a sample answer. They're oftentimes not trying to tell you what's right and what's wrong, especially when a discussion is happening. They're just trying to give you some hints how to guide the discussion and get it headed in the right direction.
The program also has a lot of great vocabulary activities, and this is a word wall that I have in my room. And so after, I usually put them up like after we've done the unit, then I'll go put the words up on the wall. But they also have all sorts of different games and activities. Each one has a PowerPoint presentation with a slide where they're flashcards where they give you the definition and then the word, but also a bunch of games. Tomorrow we're actually playing vocabulary bingo. And so it's where they fill out their own bingo chart with the words that are in the unit. And then I'll read the definition, and they have to know what the definition of the word is in order to play bingo. And then if they get it, then they have to tell me, so what are the words? So, so we'll be playing that tomorrow. There's a lot of different activities that go with our vocabulary. And this other part over here is a SIR. And the SIRs are your claim, your evidence, and your reasoning on any activity, any lab that we do. So, and this is an example of some data. So that in the evidence, they always have to include the something from the data as well. And every unit has more than one of these, and they all have them. And it gives the kids where they have to write in complete sentences. And so it's, we really enjoy doing this. The kids don't like the SIRs as well as we do. Probably if you remember them, you totally. But they actually really get to the point of what the kids know too.
And this also, let me go back real quick. This also ties in with the high school because they do CERs at the high school as well. And this is basically just what the CER format is. It's basically taking a quality scientific answer and breaking it down into 3 sections for you. So it's kind of chunking it out instead of like, here, take a drink from the fire hose. It's like, here's this one section and this is what you do for your introduction. Here's how you would put your evidence in there. And here's how you would do your reasoning at the end, which I've actually learned quite a bit from this. It's helped me be a better writer myself using this format. And I've based my goals every year on these CERs because I know they're doing them at the high school. And so I know it's
something that's gonna carry on throughout their school careers here in Creswell. And there are multiple forms of assessments. Each section will have open-ended questions where you're given a question and you just respond with a written response. There are multiple choice sections, and then each section also has a CER as well, that they're given the data and then they have to cite that data in their answer. And this curriculum is extremely easy to use for both students and staff. There's an online platform that the students all have a login for and have access to. So there's no forgetting your textbook at home. When you're at home, you log on to the same system and can get in there. And as far as the teacher is concerned, when we log in, we would see a screen like on the left, and you could go in and you can change things in each class. You can access all the different lessons from here. All the lesson plans are available. And they also include videos, which are super helpful. Just a short 2 to 3 minute video at the beginning of each section. It's like, hey, here's what you're gonna do. Here's how you set it up. Because they offer you obviously a written version of what you're supposed to do to set it up. But sometimes it's really nice to just see that video and get that secondary help.
And they're mostly for labs, so anytime we do a lab, the video tells you how to set it up and, you know, and safety issues and all that stuff too, so they're really helpful.
And they are, of course, aligned with the national standards. So we've included some of the standards on the left as well. And then they also include each section will include a scope and sequence. And so that's a sample lesson plan that we're seeing there on the right, and it's broken down by day. And then they're giving you suggestions. One of the things that I really appreciate about STEM scopes is that you don't have to follow this lesson plan to a T, and it will still work. The students will still get the information that they're trying to get out of this. Because sometimes, for example, today I had to move a lab up because the materials are being returned. I only have those materials for this one day. And it wasn't an issue at all for the students to kind of jump to the last lab in the section to do this assignment, and then we'll kind of come back and go down towards that again. So having that lesson plan as a guide is very nice.
And this last one, I couldn't have planned this if I tried. I gave that test today. And the canary current right there, this is about them being updating and responsive. That was facing the wrong direction a few years ago. And so at the top of each screen, it says feedback. So you click on that and they say, what do you want to tell us? It said the canary current is facing the wrong direction. Can you fix that? Within a reasonably short amount of time, they checked to make sure I knew what I was talking about, and they flipped the arrow on the screen. So it is now correct. So they are very responsive to feedback, which I found to be very impressive. And then they will update. They update it every year. And so we'll have updated curriculum as we go. And thank you for listening to us talk about what we love to do, and that is teach science. Do you have any questions, Fran?
No, but thank you guys for doing labs with middle schoolers. I just think that's all this you said, but yeah, no, it looks really engaging. So that's really.
And it's really accessible to the students as well. It's when we were piloting the Open SciEd, I felt like, especially with my special ed students, it was kind of leaving them in the dust. And there wasn't a lot of scaffolding available for those students, whereas this one has scaffolding. It's got notes that I can print off and give the students so they have a copy of the notes versus having to focus their energy. And honestly, the Open SciEd, it took too long. They would say, oh, this lesson should take a day, and it was 3 days. And so our concern was it's already a challenge to cover everything we're supposed to cover in the school year, and if everything takes longer, now we're looking at maybe covering half of what we should each year.
Well, thank you for bringing up the scaffolding, because that was gonna be my next question. It was just, I think science sometimes for some students can be a barrier, and sometimes you know, curriculums just don't have enough external supports to help the student fall behind. So if you guys say that it is, I mean, if it's working with your studies, that's awesome.
And they have picture vocabulary where it's like, here's the vocabulary word, here's a picture of it as well, which I think is very helpful.
And one of our teaching assistants had that very issue. She said she felt STEM scopes really supported students with special needs or learning. And I felt her perspective was really important because that is the population she works with. She's in the classroom, but she's focused on those other students. And she felt like those, her students under her care were getting more out of STEM scopes than out of the one we tried. We were glad to try the other one. Very glad to try that, but we really feel like this was solid and it will lead in nicely to high school.
And our students did really well last year. I don't know if you guys have seen that data, but middle school may have gotten the top score. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I should have taken it out, but I was wrong that morning. It was like very close to that. So I know.
Yeah, nice.
Like, we have our high school, are we flowing right in? You're Okay, okay. So we have, Kelly Trent Valley and Eric Olson, who are, 2/3 of our science team at the high school, and Patrick Doyle is another science teacher who's just unable to be with us tonight.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, so, hi. Yeah, so this is our rundown of, the science adoption. Like Ms. Collins just said, this was our group. We used Dustin Dawson a lot. He was a great help, so that was really fantastic. Yeah, and, here's our school district vision. Why patterns? So, for patterns, the essential question is how do we find and use patterns in nature to predict the future and make data-informed decisions in the present and understanding the past. So, my view on science is it's all about patterns and understanding those patterns. So we can look at nature and phenomena-based exciting moments for the kids to really identify with and move forward and understand the science behind them. Which works really well with kind of favorite curriculum. So these are the 9 patterns approach steps. And really just a few that I want to highlight is the first one. So it always starts out with having the kids make a guess or a wild guess based on their knowledge that they already have, which really helps the teachers understand where the kids are coming from in the first place and bringing it to like a shared experience together as a class. So we can kind of talk about like, oh, okay, like what have you experienced with a potato chip that goes up in the airplane? Okay, you haven't been in an airplane, but let's talk about what could be happening there. Let's see, a few other of the highlights is we always do graphing. So there's always that graphing component of predicting the pattern and understanding what is happening based on the evidence that we build. And then the very last one, asking the next question. So patterns always has them like analyze it and communicate the information, but then they take it to the next step. So what else do they want to know after that is done? So yes, they've learned this material and they have kind of a final product, but like, what is the kid then interested in and how can they, apply it to another area themselves after that?
Yeah, oh, just that also in real science, there's always new questions. Every investigation ends with new questions. And that's why we just keep going, we're never done. And so every lab in patterns as well, it ends with that, what would we do if you did this again? Well, what new questions come up? And that's how science builds on previous research.
No, I agree. Okay, and then we looked at 8 things or priorities while we were looking at curriculums and what curriculum we were hoping for that. And yeah, those 8, we're gonna talk about them a little more in depth.
So the first, and amongst the most important is student-centered learning. We learn when we do. The person doing the work in a classroom is the person who's learning, and that needs to be the student. So student scientists are placed at the center of each course. And, again, with the phenomenon, every unit starts with a phenomenon, something that is interesting that's gonna pull the kids in. It could be a question, it could be an image, it could be a video, it could be in one of the biology units, it's a story, a case study about a baby who is not thriving, and we're gonna build the knowledge to answer some questions about this story. Where patterns fits this is the three-dimensional learning, which comes from the next generation science standards. And that's pulling in both the sort of traditional content, like ecology, but also the cross-cutting concepts, those things that are true of all science. The NGSS brings in like, things like patterns or cause and effect. And then also the skills. So it's basically the topics in science, the cross-cutting concepts, and then the skills, the science and engineering skills. And so, that really creates like a whole student kind of curriculum. It's addressing all the things we want students to get out of the science course, not just like the facts about a particular thing. It really leverages student assets, and I'm gonna come back to that one more when we get to the cultural relevance or the cultural responsiveness. It asks us to, as Erica said, with the sort of wild guess, to it asks students where are they at on this stuff, and then we want to leverage what they know and what they can do and bring that into the next things. As with the middle school teacher said, the hands-on, minds-on. If they're not doing something, then they're probably not getting it, but we want them to get it. And then also the teacher is not necessarily, with a lot of these activities, is not necessarily in front of the students. The teacher is with the students facilitating the activity that they're doing. Yes. Collaboration. So much like the middle school teacher said too, we want them to work together. Science is a collaborative process. Scientists don't work in a vacuum. Patterns brings also a sort of group accountability. A lot of activities are group-based, but then also have individual accountability. So there's sort of class, group, and individual accountability. They're gonna do better when they work together, but they do need to be individually accountable as well. But in almost all the labs, we share data as a whole class too, and sometimes across classes. We collect all of our data. So we can have the data discussions is one of the hallmarks of patterns. Everybody shows the data that they got, the graphs that they got, and they share it together and discuss it as a class, not just as a group or individually. And this builds leadership skills too, because they all have to be involved. Okay. And then the patterns approach to inquiry. So inquiry is really, for a long time, like maybe my whole teaching career, we've been talking about inquiry. Like, how do we make it so that labs and activities aren't this sort of cookbook, do this, then do this. And I know that when I was in high school, I did some chemistry labs. I don't know why I was doing it. You're going through the steps. You're like, okay, I got a thing. Cool. Inquiry is asking them to ask questions and then figure out how to answer those questions. And at the end, they should have some sort of answer and more questions. Hopefully. So again, it's that guess. The first thing they do is not so much a hypothesis because they don't know very much about it. So you can ask them to just say, put out there on the table what you think might happen, make a prediction. And then we're going to do work and do the inquiry. And then we're going to use our data to see if we answered the question or how close we got. And then we're going to make predictions based on that, which is what science does, is make predictions.
Yeah, and to add on to what Kelly was saying, a really fantastic piece that I think Patterns does well is they assess after they analyze their data, they've assessed, did we even collect the right data to be answering this question, or should we have done something totally different to, to answer this exact question? And how reasonable is that? So, kind of looking at their answers and whether it's reasonable to draw a conclusion from that. All right, and then every patterns unit ends with like normally a beautiful engineering project that I'm quite partial to. Because it ties back in that essential question that they were asked in the very beginning. So everything that they're doing is kind of towards this original goal that that they've been asked, or this phenomena that they, have got to experience. Sometimes in chemistry, it's, watching sodium explode in water, but that's on the video, because, but you know, it's still, you know, they get that fun experience, and then we talk about like what potassium does in water. Oh, it also explodes in water. What does chlorine do in water? Absolutely nothing. So they all have that kind of shared experience in the beginning, and then at the end, they can do this beautiful engineering project where they get to dive into themselves and, you know, kind of, you know, not only have they designed their own labs throughout, but now they're, yeah, like creating something, which I think is really a valuable experience for them. Some of the projects are, so in physics, they do a lot of engineering projects around things like wind turbines, bungee jumps. We got to do the designing a shoe, project with Mr. Doyle. So that was really fun to get to see what they're doing in physics, because they have me in chemistry and then they go to Mr. Doyle the next year. And, I have, you know, experienced some of them, the labs, but not all of them. So it was really a fun opportunity to get to see that one. I do thermometers, candy, making chapsticks, hot and cold packs, batteries. My favorite, because the kids love it, is the ice cream. I'm not gonna lie, that's normally a good response. On that one. And then Kelly has a lunch also.
We don't do aquaponics anymore, that's, what we do, we make yogurt is one of the options that we can do, and we talk about habitat corridors, designing basically a way for animals to get over highways and things like that. California's been doing a lot of these recently, and some article about that, so we get to design that. We don't build it so much in biology, but we have some of the same engineering, principles like constraints, like, you know, there's a cost constraint, you gotta be able, it's gotta fit the biome and environment of the animal you're trying to get, you know, it has to be place-based, so based on an actual place and an actual work.
And, the engineering projects really fit into this pattern, based approach, because they, you know, engineering is all about reiterations. So if we had endless amount of time, you know, they could do one of these projects for 6 months and just keep reiterating and learning things. So that's really fun to watch.
So next is culturally responsive, and this is really important. And so we want the phenomena to be, we can't make them all culturally engaging to everyone necessarily, but maybe over the course of you know, a year or a semester, everyone feels pulled in by these. I'm surprised sometimes what people pull kids in. But this is important because we've got things like caring relationships and values and capital. But the thing that patterns brings to this is things like the place-based activities. This patterns was developed by and built by teachers in Oregon. So it is like fundamentally place-based. And many of the activities that we do, particularly in biology, are about Oregon. One of them that we'll do in the next unit, we actually go out and collect arthropods or bugs, essentially, from behind the high school. And we see what we can find, and we look at like, what did we predict would be there? Would be a lot, a little, where would we find more? Near the school, farther from the school. And it's very much about like where they live. They get to talk about what is happening, what does development do to where they live. It also brings in, and I think this is really important, is the tribal history lessons are built into patterns. So we're required now to teach shared history, tribal history lessons at all grade levels, and they're built in here, and they are local. They are about Boulder, Oregon. We're actually working through the Rural Teachers Consortium to build them to be even maybe more specific to our part of Oregon. But right now, it's really cool. Students know what they're talking about. They're talking about the various rivers and different projects that are being impacted. And then, of course, there's also some career connections in there as well, which I think we all know is super important.
Yeah, and so not only does it give us a chance, just like the middle school was talking about how responsive the STEM scopes is. So, you know, patterns is super responsive, not only because it's local, but because of what Kelly was saying about that rural advisory committee. So Patrick and I are both on that patterns role science teacher advisory committee already. So that is a great opportunity for us, and it's a small team to speak up and make changes as we go through it. The other thing that after listening to the middle school speak about STEM scopes is that patterns really does. They have designed the science curriculum to support math. So it's another, just like STEM scopes, they use a lot of math in it, but they actually like support it in building up their math skills. So it's not as much of an expectation that they've already at a certain point, but just an expectation that they're going to use, you know, basic skills, and then the next unit can use a little bit more skills and increase their math skills as they go through science also.
So differentiation, and so this is obviously very important, and we heard about it in the middle school too, and I actually today and for too, for SIOP, which is a sheltered instruction for English language learners. And this is part of what this is, Patterns has basically built in those best practices around how do we make this science accessible to everyone? How do we have multiple entry points so that the science is available to students, even if the language is difficult or the reading level is not where we would hope it is, that they are getting the supports, the scaffolds they need to access the science content, and then also practice the language objectives we would like them to also reach. Virtually every assignment I have ever done, a lab, a handout, a hands-on activity, includes sentence stems. So essentially, you know, a starter for students who maybe are going to struggle with putting a sentence together, but they've got the ideas, they understand the concepts, but then they get stuck on the writing the sentence. And we want them to write sentences, but we can give them a little boost with a sentence stem or sentence starter. And it's on, right, we've got it in verse 2, it's on everything where we ask them to write is going to give them an optional place to start that sentence. I know I'm not a strong writer, sometimes I could use a little boost with like, when I know what I need to say, how do I say it? And so those are some of the things that are just sort of built in. And also includes a lot of extensions. Every unit has extensions for those students that maybe are sort of exceeding what we need them to do and are, you know, or so that, or better just, you know, get the science. Like we've got things that we can either give them alternatively or additionally to help them sort of stretch their science means as well. And so again, like this developing confidence, when kids can do this and get those wins, then they don't feel like they're bad at science. It's a heartbreaker when students come to classes and say, well, I'm bad at science. Like, well, how can you be bad at science? Like, you ask questions, like you can, you know, investigate, like, of course you can, you're great at science. We just have to, you know, keep trying. And then I'll go quick here because we just sort of talked about this, but it's also really language rich. There's reading and annotating. There's again, all the language supports that I just mentioned, and I have some copies of paper, if you want to see that. There's a lot of discussion. There's a lot of, I was at a meeting this afternoon about student talk in the Patterns classroom. Basically, how do we get kids to talk to each other about science so they can really understand well and understand each other and have that opportunity to talk. And so that's really a language skill that all kids need, but in particular, our English language learners, they need to be using that social language to support their academic language. And so that we can get them there. And that's really, doing that in groups really facilitates that. Okay, and lastly, three-dimensional assessment. As I said before, those three dimensions are sort of the content standards we're accustomed to, the facts of science, then also the skills of science and engineering, and then those big overarching concepts like cause and effect or change over time and things like that, that we want them to sort of take away and that are cut across all of the sciences. And we want them to see those patterns of concept across science. And so while it doesn't have a platform, Patterns does not have a platform. It has, you know, a really lovely website these days with all of these all of what that we need as teachers to do this, but there isn't like a testing platform or something of that nature. It's all
that are on paper. A few of the assessments in biology are not a test so much as it is a sort of summative, culminating, project or lab where they're gonna show you what they know about the whole thing at the end. I know with one of them, the baby, that ends up being a writing assignment. It's a really big multi-paragraph CER is what they're gonna tell me about at the end. Then bring in all the good stuff.
Yeah, which reminds me that yes, patterns include CER and basically every single activity they have to have a CER. And it actually scaffolds it with the sentence frames like we were mentioning. And then increases as they go through. So at the basic level of patterns, they will start out by doing just the CER, plain evidence reasoning. And then by the time they get to me, they have to do plain evidence reasoning and then an extension of like, what more are you thinking about now? So they kind of take it to the next level after that, so. Yeah, so they build really nicely off of the school's CEO work.
And we've seen that, like, yeah, we can see that the kids know what to do.
Yeah.
I can.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And sophomores. Down. And then, we just want to show off our data for state testing. Yeah, so we're doing great. We're really proud of ourselves. And so, and the students, obviously this is the students that are doing amazing. Lee, and yeah, so we're at 33%. In the red, where, in the red, whereas the state is at 43, 46, sorry, I can read that, I swear. So, you know, I can get this showing, and then 35 versus 25 for our beautiful grading level of proficiency. And then, since we are talking about all of these, I will pass out examples to you guys as I talk about state data. So yeah, so I think, you know, being better than the state average definitely speaks for itself. So this is a unit opener for, the unit that we talk about the periodic table and how it's organized. I think I brought 4. Oh, I can share that. Okay. And I brought, so there's slides, so the stapled document. Are the slides that we go through together as a class. And then the following document is the, whoops. Oh. Perfect. And the attached document, the paper by itself, is where the students fill it out, and you can see there's a lot of led discussion, a lot of think, pair, shares, a lot of looking for patterns. I don't know how many times you can say pattern, that's what we're talking about, just break down. But I probably can find a few more times to say it. So yeah, so they take these cards. Oh, here's the cards. And they actually lay them out on their table and physically look for patterns in the pictures, because at this point, they really don't know very much about any element at all. And it's not giving them an answer from the cards, it's just telling them information. And then as they put them in different groups, then they start noticing trends and identifying kind of how it's organized. And then every once in a while, the group will be like, oh, hey, this looks like the periodic table on the wall. And I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. So that's really exciting to watch that, have them, you know, realize that they've just made the periodic table. And every patterns unit has like a beautiful walkthrough where you can, as a teacher, take a look and see what's coming ahead, what the goals are, and what the takeaway should be. Yeah,
That's your area.
okay. Oh,
They're too good.
gotcha. Yes, sorry, I skipped ahead. So this is this year's,
Last year's.
yes, and then the year before. 2021 to 2022. So we were using patterns both of these years. And then this is the document that the ESDs helped us come up with. So Dustin did a great job helping us evaluate it. And he found that patterns did really well, biochemistry, physics. We all got 2s for the pattern, or those patterns got 2s. No, I think we're amazing, but patterns got 2s. Except for the very last one, and that speaks to what Kelly was just talking about, as far as there's not an online platform for students to go take a test. But there is a restricted folder for teachers where they provide our tests and assessments. It's just, they make us prove that we're a teacher, so it's not the students finding that, accessing that, which I appreciate. Because I have very kind, intelligent students.
Do you have any questions? A lot. That's a lot. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, it's so good. I was just thinking you guys put a lot of, all of you put a lot of time and energy into this outside of what you do every day already. So I really appreciate your presentations today. Very good, very thorough, but I don't have any, I don't personally have any questions.
It's really thorough.
Yeah.
Well, we really like this. It's not very flashy. It doesn't have like, there are a lot of things embedded in it that we could show you if we were looking at the website, the videos, the slides, everything has, Sarah showed you slideshows and, the formats that the students can use visually, or we print it out a lot of times, because I find my students really wanting to work with pencils. But I think we all really feel passionately about the patterns curriculum. It works. It seems to be working.
I do want to say I appreciate the localized component. Like, I think science sometimes for kids, like if they can connect it to like their immediate environment, they will have like a stronger connection to the understanding. And I think that sometimes that can be missed. So that's, to me, that's like a really cool way for them to be able to, in their immediate environment, connect to their education. And so that's really cool.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that, one of the biology lessons that we'll get into in the next unit, it's about climate change, but it starts talking about fires, which is something we're all really familiar with. And basically about how, tribes have managed lands before. And so and then how there's, collaboration between governments and tribes now, and it's all about local Oregon tribes, and it feels very real for kids. And I think that goes to that sort of seeing themselves as scientists and seeing themselves as people who can do science, because you're right, it's like they're connected, they feel really connected to it. And it doesn't feel like something that, smart people at universities do, it's something that people do. Right?
And it has a tangible component.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful.
It's really cool.
Right, they're doing real science, this is,
They're doing real science and everybody can do it.
yes.
There's a way in for everybody. So I think that's really. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Amy, Aguero, did you want to add any comments
Oh,
on
I-
the process?
Just a great process. You have some experts in the room who do a really nice job of digging in. Both teams mentioned Dustin Dawson of ESD. He's also a really phenomenal help in supporting and guiding our teams. We really appreciate their support. I will say the elementary school, they're in a pilot right now, so they're piloting Twig. I don't know if they'll land with that one, but we will most likely be looking at a presentation from them next year. If you recall, we had an approval to sign that deferment for our buildings. We have 2 that we're in the process of. We'll see if that goes tonight. But our elementary school will most likely be for next year. So they are piloting currently. And then lastly, I would say that next year's adoption will be related to health. So we're already starting to get into the nuts and bolts of health, and we'll be navigating that one next year. That's it. Thank you. Thank you all so much. And if you felt like you wanted to not stay for the rest of the meeting because you put in a lot of time and energy into all of the things, and you have families, please feel free to leave. We do not, we will not hold you off this year. But up next would be our superintendent report. Yeah.
Would it be helpful to have these back for you?
Or did you want them back?
Oh, if you are not going to use them, you can use it.
I would like to.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sarah might be going.
I'm
She
sure
might-
I know,
Yes.
Starting Duolingo tonight. And yours,
Thank you.
Okay, so, you see my report, on the agenda, but, and I'll go over my highlights, but on my activities or any of the bond updates, I highlighted in green what is in progress for you. And then, in black are the items that we've already completed, the projects that have been completed. And, we have more projects to go for sure, but this is where we're at to date.
Question, are you for that question? Yeah. So it's CMS. Is there a fence going around the field?
Yes.
Is there gonna be stands? Like, how are they gonna see? Where's the fence going? I haven't been over there, I've just heard
Okay.
about it.
So we have the fence going around the track pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And then where the, school enters the facility, the track, we have a jog out going. And then there's a slab that's going there, and then the bleachers will be set in there.
Understood, okay, that's what I wasn't sure about, thank you.
Yeah, sort of like the high school, just smaller plot.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Good question. I have my list.
Yeah.
Yeah, so lots of progress moving forward as far as planning goes for the bigger projects that are happening around CHS at the time, with our engineers and architects and designers, installers of the fields and so on. I have on my highlights, the baseball and softball field. So we completed the turf designs for both fields. And I have some renderings for you tonight. They're hot off the press, just got them. And the turf
Hand
is,
it back.
Yeah, I heard all about it already.
Give her.
I already got measurements.
turfs are at the turf mill being milled currently right now by the developer. And so we'll be seeing those being delivered pretty soon. I'd say within a month or 6 weeks, they might show up, our turf for each of the fields, and then we'll store them until they're ready for install during the summer. So it looks like we're going to go ahead and begin demolition on the baseball field soon, by the end of next week. And which is really to an advantage for us, because when we demo the softball field, we'll be taking dirt from the softball field that comes out, because it's good dirt that's on the top of the field there. And using it for fill dirt for the baseball field, which needs a lot of it. So, and it's a big, large area, the baseball field is as compared to the softball field. So, we'll need quite a bit of fill dirt in there.
Yeah, these are the new dugouts down here, right? These are the old dugouts.
Yeah, the dugouts are moving down.
They're sliding,
Yeah.
yes.
Where they should be. Yeah. You can see.
But see, where you see the cutout here of the turf dimensions are already made, but they can be cut or extended on the side, down the sidelines or around the perimeter. And so that gives us the flexibility of moving the dugouts where we want to along that line. If we need to move back, if we need to move forward, either way. But getting the dimensions down on the field and getting the cutouts where we wanted them to be, to give us that flexibility, that's the main, that's what they needed to go ahead and cut the turf to mill.
Yeah, and I heard a rumor, and I think it's good for everyone to know, is that there's certain pieces of these fields that are built to be removed and replaced every other year. Like the batter's boxes, or maybe not every other year, but on a more regular basis than other areas.
So, yeah, they're stitched in, with, I think it's like a fiberglass kind of stitching that they use when they put the field together over there, same type of stuff. And so when that wears out, they just replace the mound.
Right.
Yeah. In some fields, you can have a design where it's like put down with, what's this stuff called, that you lift up?
Velcro, that's
Velcro.
what they were telling us, that's what they do.
So, yeah, they have fields where you can do that. We happen to have the number one field installer on the west coast that works with us, with CSD. And, not CSD, the school district, but with CSD Council that is our partner in this endeavor. And they advise not to use the Velcro removable, fields because they're not really stable when they're put down, and they tend to wear out more underneath, quicker because of that. So when they go in and put off a full mound, then they redo the foundation, all the pellets and everything, pack it, and then put the material back on it when you do it. And, I looked at both methods, but Ryan is really the guy. He really is the expert on all this. He's been invaluable to us.
And was a baseball coach, so
And he was a
cares
baseball
about
Big time.
fields.
Yeah, so. Any questions on the field of where we're at with those?
So you said baseball starts after this week, or?
By the end of next week. Should be around there, weather permitting. I'll start on some of the perimeter stuff, the fencing and pulling that out. And then as the ground dries out, then Nathan will get in and start to dig.
Okay, I have a question as somebody who doesn't know anything about baseball or softball. So the fence on the back typically, correct me if I'm wrong, is lower, right? It's like a 4-foot fence or something. Is that like by regulation? So how will that work with like taller fencing? Are we just gonna have like a fence out there and then another exterior fence for those?
So while we were researching these different ball fields and the different designs of them, and asking some of these folks, like the drifters over here on the Bushnell field, over by Hamlin, and why they did certain things over with their turf, cutting it in, or the outfield fence being 10 foot high. Why did they choose that? And they actually did that to prevent injuries over the outfield fence, because of when the outfielders go after the balls, they catch their arms on the top of the fence, or, they run into the top bar on the fence or something of that nature. I thought, that's something. So I brought that up with the coaches of both programs, and they said, well, yeah, no, we'd like to go with a higher fence on the outfield. And so we have 6-foot fence around the perimeter, probably 6 or 7, and then we get up to 8 foot or higher up there on the back of the outfield fence.
That's awesome. Okay, thank you for the clarification. I didn't know. And I'm excited that this is gonna be level after walking out there the one time at the hill. I'm very excited.
Yeah,
It seems very dangerous.
I'm excited that the kids will actually be able to slide on the softball field rather than bounce into a base.
Oh, you saw Jeff do that?
Yeah, it was like,
Welcome to our
oh,
world, Mike. Welcome to our world.
see that skin out there on there.
And she's probably the best slider on the team. That tells you how bad that is.
I like that, absolutely. So yeah, any other questions? Good question. We did a lot of assessments out there of different fields and lives and how they were dealt in Like looking at the mounds and researching that, and then looking at the fences and researching that. Anything that was a notable difference between all the current fields that are built out there, there was just a list of questions that Gilbert and I had to get answers to. And, if they made sense, then we went in that direction with the coaches and talked to them about it.
I asked about the fencing again. So the fencing now, I'm looking at some of it, this fencing thing, believe me, there's a lot. So the fencing is, the posts are in to go around the track right now. And then they stop just about here, right? So is this gonna be completely fenced in and then you get to this field or right through the field? How do you?
Yeah, we'll have a sliding gate there.
Gotcha, okay.
So we have both fields. So we'll have a
I
sliding
had to
gate
walk
at
through
the
a
side.
track thing today and I was like, oh, okay, I should ask the question.
So we'll have a sliding gate there so that they can go through there. If we have a track event, then we'll have to have the gates closed
Yeah.
and people will have to go around the field. So we'll have a gravel road.
Okay, that makes sense to me. Because even middle school track meet is insane.
That was their regional, it's not, they're not really that big.
Yeah, but I mean, it's hard with that many people.
Well, especially if you have games.
There
going
today.
on.
There were 7 or 8 schools there.
And some schools have really good teams.
Ashburn brought 140 kids for their middle school.
I know. We have like 170 kids up for it's not that in one year.
It's all good. Okay, cool. So thank you very much.
Any other questions? Yeah.
I got a question for you. I've done, the last 2 or 3 weeks, a couple of track meets where I just run the clock on 100 and hurdles and that kind of stuff. And I noticed the javelin, those guys are throwing from, let's see, they're coming in from the west, but the javelins are landing on the football field. Is that pretty common? I think they all have rubber tips, but is that pretty common now? Went through javelin in the old days, we had something with a sharp point on it, which
They're
I'm
all-
surprised they let us do that, but does that not, I mean, it's okay, it doesn't tear up the field. I was just really surprised when I saw that.
No, we actually got new javelins for the field. For turf.
Okay,
Yeah, they're all turf javelin. And then the concern there is when you have javelins and discus throwers going at the same time, you have to schedule them differently because you got javelins going out and discus going out. If you don't coordinate the meet to where those are happening at different times, then you have too many people going in and out of the field from both areas to get to retrieve discus and javelin. So it's all about how you coordinate what's going on in practice and what's going on in the meets around those two.
Yeah, I always thought it was weird that like kids throw really sharp objects through the air. When I was a kid too, I'm like, that seems unsafe.
I thought it was amazing, so I guess we're on different sides of that.
Great question, because I didn't even think about
Yeah,
that.
but that is a great question.
I went to state one year and a kid they were throwing javelins. The next thing I know, kid from a neighboring town had one right through his thigh. And I think they threw it through it. It was also with the U of O. And I think somebody threw one through a hedge or something and the kid just happened to walk alongside it and got him in his thigh. They pulled it out and I'm sure he was okay, but.
Oh, yeah. It's
It's like, oh.
Unless you're scared to say it really woke us up.
Yeah.
That's, I'm still surprised they gave us something with a sharp point, but that's all.
The discs are no better. We were at the track meet in Harrisburg and they were throwing and they were running the 3,000 and a girl threw and it went onto the track and the kid had to jump, like the way that theirs was set up. It was like super dangerous and it happened more than once as we were watching.
It's like that's a brand new setup. They just put that in last year, the year before.
Well,
They're not coordinating.
the thrower went and just like she just released in the wrong direction, in fairness. But it was a hazard and it was a Creswell kid that was running and I was like, oh my gosh, but yeah.
It should have changed the direction of
So even the
Misfire.
even the discs can be dangerous. It's not just little like long sharp holes.
The guys came in where there's half of them, excuse me, there's 6 or 7 of us timers, and just came over right in the middle of all of us there a couple of times.
Oh,
Nobody got hit, but focus up.
Yeah.
You don't want to hear it coming.
Yeah.
Highlight number 2 is, Creswell field discussion. The Babe Ruth, president and, board member, asked to meet with me and, presented an option for, not an option, but presented an opportunity for developing another field over there next to Creswell. And it would be a T-ball field. And then we also talked about when you go from T-ball to baseball, you can't go from, and girls and boys play T-ball together. Girls don't have the opportunity to go from T-ball to softball. So we talked about, and we've had, some plans in the making of developing a JV softball field just beyond, the play area here. And how that could be modified or have a baseline where you can have youth softball involved in there too on that field. And so trying to develop programs from youth through high school is the idea. And so, we started those discussions. I've started looking into some of the agreements that we would have, legally if we go in that direction, and I believe we will. I think that's what this community needs, and so do they, and they have the organizations that will support it. So I'm looking forward to the conversation continuing. We're looking out to next year in this, so we have some time to do this right and bring it all together so that we have sustainable facilities and programs for our youth.
So, are we going to have a middle school softball team potentially? Is that, and
Well, we could have a community or a team that competes with kids sports,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's like,
and where would, like, if they were doing that right now, what field would they end up using?
They have to go to Cottage Grove right now, right, Candace?
Yeah, but ideally, it would be this one back
The
here.
one behind us, yeah.
So there's actually 2 softball fields, but this is also kind of a Babe Ruth, not Babe Ruth, I don't know what.
They've used it for Babe Ruth.
Yeah, so it's kind of been a younger kids field, and there's probably an opportunity for it to be a more shared field between boys and girls.
Okay, so if we did have a middle school team, it would practice probably over here in this area, not at the middle.
Correct.
Okay,
Right now, our local club team, middle school team, practices on our softball field, like today, we just left all of our stuff out, and they just followed us after practice.
okay.
So, yeah, a lot of field development for programs, of all ages, around our property.
Yeah, I think softball is like, and I don't know much about it, but it seems like one of the sports that doesn't, and maybe even like our little guys, I guess, of Babe Ruth, it just seems like it historically hasn't been a lot of space in place for them, so that's really cool.
Yeah.
I'm excited to hear that, because I think it's how we get strong high school teams,
Yeah.
is if we start
And
earlier.
how cute is T-ball?
Huh?
T-ball's just cute to watch.
I mean, they are pretty great, they're like little bobbleheads, like hot water football. And I love it, I would watch that, I would show up for that.
So those are my highlights for the month, for last month.
moving on, we don't really have public comment, I don't think, do we? Okay. Now we're on unfinished business. Joyce, sir.
I move to adopt the posted revised policies that are listed in the agenda. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 4, 6 of them.
I second that. Any discussion?
I did make a list of small notes if you guys wanted any rundowns of anything.
Please share.
Okay, so I'm just gonna go in order. So, the first one, ACR, which is technically ACAR. Really the only change in this policy is there's an adjustment on step 3. So this is I'm gonna open them as I go, so I call them the right thing. This is the discrimination complaint policy, and the only change to this policy is that, it's adjusting step 3, which would be the step that comes to us, from a 10-day response time to a 30-day response time, to allow us to actually have a board meeting. So that will allow you to have board meetings, but that's the only change in that particular policy. If we move to the next one, which is EFA. So this is a required policy. We do have one now that's not nearly as robust, but this outlines our offerings for our wellness within the district. And we spent quite a long time talking about it and researching what we actually can and do offer and appropriately outline them in the policy. But this is a requirement of Title IX, so. But there aren't anything in there that you wouldn't expect. It kind of outlines our food program. Some of our, that's probably the biggest one, and then employee wellness, student wellness. The next one, the UFCF, this is our hazing harassment policy. And they essentially changed the word from a complaint policy to a reporting policy. So everywhere you saw the word complaint, they changed it to reporting, you know, they want to take some of the stigma out of it. And then they've actually removed the requirement to use a specific form. So that report can come in a variety of different ways. It's not required to use a specific form anymore. The policy contents themselves change them. Then the next one is JGE, and this outlines our expulsion policy. There's minimal changes in here. It's just more aligned with the state requirements of if there were to go through an expulsion and what the process is for appeal to the board. And it does outline in here, which we had talked about recently, about if there was a board conducted hearing, what that means from a executive session perspective. The next one is LBE, which is our public charter schools. Actually, the next two are LBE. This is an updated policy where it outlines if there were to be a local charter school, what is the relationship that we would have with that school and what are the things kids would participate here versus being part of the charter school. We don't currently have a charter school, so this isn't something that takes, is in, you know, really affects us now, but if there was to be a charter school, it helps outline what that relationship would be for our policy. And we currently do have this policy, so this is just an update based on what has happened in the state in the last year and to better align districts. And then the last is actually a new policy, LBE, which is LBE-A, which also goes with public charter, and it kind of puts some parameters around what percentage, so if you have more than 3% of your students residing in the district attending a virtual public school, what does that mean and what are those approval processes? That is everything. Did I explain it? Did I appropriate? See, I was prepared today.
No. All right.
Yeah, and you were really good. On the charter school, attendance or, the 3%. So at the 3% threshold, we could decline transfers out. And, we have never hit the 3% threshold of our district. So that wouldn't come into play in any given year, that we would reach that 3%, that's what that's about.
All right, all in favor? Okay. All right, next item is,
I move to approve the revised 2024-2025 school calendar.
Second.
Mike, do you want to?
Yeah, so in the development of the previous calendar that we brought to you, there was a miscalculation on the days counted in there of the contract of the school year. Where it should be should have been 190 days for our teachers by contract, and it was 189. Just an oversight in looking at the different complications that went into developing this calendar because of the leap year and coming out of last year, which was a real odd year where the holidays fell and such. And so it just, there was just a miscalculation in there, and we needed to add 1 day at the end of the school year. Process this with the CEA, and they understood and agreed as well, so that we could meet contract. So all those vacations that started on the 13th,
Gonna have to add, high absence of that emergency. All in favor? All right, sure. We're sailing now. Okay, so this one, before we get started, we have, one budget committee opening left. Because we appointed somebody last meeting, so we have 2 applicants and their information is listed in the board book. And so after a lot of discussion, what we need is a nomination of an applicant or both applicants or whatever takes place, and then we'll vote for which applicant, and whichever carries the vote, we will then appoint. Did I get that? Yeah, it took all 3 of us to figure that out. So, anyway, so if you guys have an opportunity to look through the 2 applications that we have, and if anybody has a nomination.
I'd like to nominate Daniel.
Okay, so nomination for Daniel Halverson.
Is there a second? Oh, I'll second.
Okay, but that part we didn't have first, okay, all right.
In fairness, I don't know either person, so I don't.
Okay. All right, so we have a nomination. Do we want to vote to?
Are there any other nominations?
No other nominations, so we don't need to vote. So then the motion.
We do
is-
need to.
Oh, we'll need a motion to approve the appointment. Does that work? Okay, somebody want to make that motion? It's very complicated.
Use the June, appointed you.
So motion
Because you
to,
nominated.
you're making a
I'll
motion.
make a motion. Yeah. To approve Daniel Halverson's nomination.
Okay. There you go, second on that. Okay, this is so confusing. All right, all in favor of appointing Daniel Halverson to the budget committee? Thank you. I'm so glad they all left before we did that. I'm just gonna, because I was like, I knew it was gonna be a hot mess. So, but we did that very well. All right, so Danielle will be added to the budget committee. And then the next item on is the discussion item, and just so this was kind of confusing in our last meeting, discussing whether we were gonna do a Zoom meeting or do an in-person meeting. And then after we left, Marilyn reached out to our appointed members of the committee, and a number of them had a problem with meeting in person. And since we adopted the budget calendar in December, and we posted it as a Zoom meeting, we feel like, to be transparent, that we should move it back to Zoom for this next budget meeting. So next Wednesday meeting will be a Zoom meeting and not in person. So.
Yeah, like we go to the dodgeball game.
Correct.
Yeah, right.
Well, I'll be there. Yeah, just teasing. But, so we'll just
play with the kids, remember?
Okay, all right. So next December, we just need to remember when we're making the budget calendar, if we want to do it in person, that we need to talk about it then. So that we can let our appointed members know, so that they don't have conflicts, and that's kind of what we came up with this time. So this is basically just informational for us to know that we're gonna do Zoom as opposed to.
Let's probably just keep silent going forward, right? Like,
Yeah,
we shouldn't say Zoom.
yeah, we'll just not like say whether it's Zoom or in person, we'll just say we're having a budget committee meeting, and if for some reason we need to change. So, yeah. But, so that was all that was about. And I need to let Lacey pretend know. So,
And that's a 5:30, correct?
there. Is that good? We were meeting earlier for dinner, and now you have to go yours. All right, on to new business. All right. So I have a statement to read first. The board has completed its annual performance evaluation of Superintendent Johnson. At our last board meeting, the board provided a statement that included a review of the evaluation process for Superintendent Johnson. And that he had received high marks for his performance and accomplishment for the 2023-24 school. Following the performance evaluation, the board may decide to extend Superintendent Johnson's contract or not extend his contract for the 3rd year through the 26-27 school year.
I move to approve Superintendent Johnson's contract extension.
All right, all in favor? Okay. That was easier than that. All these complicated things
Is
today.
that 1 year or 5?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, why are we friends with?
So I have a response to that. I accept another year extension on my contract through the 26-27 school year. And look forward to the progress that we'll make together as we continue to move the district to higher levels of success for our students and our staff and community.
Thank you, what you've done for our district, and look forward to the next year. All right. Okay.
I move to adopt the EMS sites curriculum.
Second.
All right, any discussion on that, or are we all good with everything? Okay, perfect. All in favor? All right. Yeah.
I move to approve the CHS sites curriculum.
Second that one too.
Okay,
I was gonna race them.
I know, I just watched the end of the table to see who's winning. No.
I'll be quiet.
No. Backward, nothing. Anyway, so any discussion on that one? I just wanna say that I feel like everybody did a really great job on the presentations tonight, and I commend everybody. There's a lot of time and energy people put into that, and I appreciate them being here after, away from their families and doing all the good things for our kids, so I appreciate that from our administrators too, so. All in favor of that? Perfect, moving on. And we already approved the out-of-state for both high school and middle school, so we're gonna skip that. And then we just have a discussion item, 8th grade promotion and graduation ceremony.
Yeah, so, in the past, we've kind of put it out there on who would want to participate or attend each one of the ceremonies and represent board. And at times, there was a few that would attend each, and then there were several who wanted to attend one, and it's just open to you on, which one you want to attend, or both, if you like.
And did you have the dates for us for both of them? I know that we talked in the meeting. June
The
7th.
7th is graduation, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I was like, I know I put the 7th in, but when we were talking, I wasn't sure if it's the 11th or the other.
So the board kind of coordinates if, they're going to split up and go two different directions, or half is going to attend one, half is going to attend the other, or something of that nature. However.
And
you want.
we've drawn where we all attend the high, from two. The middle, the stage is a little sketchy, but other than
I'm gonna pass, well, only because it was a little much for all of us to be on the middle school one.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'll be on
I'll pass on that one too. This year I did it last year. It was me and the mics.
it. And,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm already gonna be at both of them.
yeah, you should do it.
I have one going, I will have both boys participating in those.
Yeah, you should do it.
Yeah.
I don't know that I have enough waterproof mascara yet. I'm undecided on what I want my involvement to be.
That's okay, you don't have to decide it. No, I will do both, because so many people are talking about it.
Well, that's good, the board chair, I thought.
Okay, I'll do both, look at me.
I'll do both.
Okay.
And
And then,
then we'll check in with Lacey and Tim to see what they're gonna do.
What is the board role or involvement in these promotions? Like, what are we doing? What is?
Jim, were you at high school last year?
It was me.
Oh, we hand out their good ones.
You literally.
or whatever the principals.
Or whatever the
they're
principals
arranging.
want to rearrange things to.
Yeah, you may be shaking hands, you may be in the handshake line, maybe handing diplomas, or, however they feel they're setting up the ceremony for us to honor them. Me and the board and all.
You sit on the stage. But you don't have to, like, if you wanna sit with your family, sit.
Yeah, especially once your kids are promoting, you can
If you wanna-
say, don't feel pressure. I mean, I did go to 8th grade last
You're
year.
just an official dignitary.
Yeah. All right, so you think on that, and then we'll touch base with the other couple people. Okay, so, all right, so trustee report, anything to report, Mike?
Mike and I had our yearly meeting the other day, which went really well. went to the Laney SED meeting last night. Mike and I went to, well, to back up, I'm on the airport commission. And we had a presentation to make at the city council work session. And Mike came with me and, I talked about what was going on at the airport, and he talked about where we're at with the construction and so on with the bond. And the city council, where those guys were, and ladies were all smiles and had lots of questions for him, and I'm really glad he went along, and it was a good meeting. I arranged for the secretary at Laney SD's daughter to go for a flight with one of our pilots out at the airport. And she's got a chance for a full ride scholarship at a flight school in Portland. And she had a really good time. And if anybody knows anybody that wants to go for a flight, the experimental aircraft guys will take you all around. Those guys.
But I have a parachute.
I couldn't believe, Pat, you let this young lady fly the plane for quite a while. He said, I never get to look at the scenery, so he was looking out the window and just letting her go.
Fine. I don't even like my children driving the car. It's exciting, we need people to be pilots, but I'm just not that person, I'm proud, I'm glad there are people that do that.
Also, we had a play here at the high school that we went to. It was the musical, which I was really, really surprised at what those kids did. That young lady that had the lead, she had to memorize a ton of lines.
She did great.
And it was fantastic. I was really surprised. They did a great job. I did a couple, I mentioned earlier, I went to a couple track meets and got to run the clock or time a few of the runners, which was, it was fun. That track is really, really nice. I was just amazed at what I saw. That is a great track for those kids to run on. It looks like something that was built for speed, but also built to last. And it was great. And then the last thing I did, I met with Tony Skirdo, who's the superintendent of Laney SD, and talked to him about what they're doing for the special needs kids when they are in a situation where they get out of the school up there, what they're doing for them for jobs, how they're helping them. And we've still got a lot of talking to do. But reason I asked, I've got a lot of customers who are begging for people to come to work. And there's got to be a match here somewhere if they're not covering all those kids. So we'll find out. And maybe we can help a little bit, maybe not. But I thought it was worth the effort to try. So
Yeah.
we'll see how it all goes. That's about it.
You've been busy.
So that's I've been to some track meets, quite a few of them away and home. It's been fun to watch the kids this year. And we went to one in La Pine. That was like really cool. So it's like wild. I know the baseball team said it was snowing when they were there. Mike and I did our one-on-one, and this is not necessarily school board related, but it was fun to see. As I was at a conference and I bumped into Jenny and the high school team, and it was super fun to see them engaged. Like Wen had the like 3D glasses on, and like they were just, it was a really great conference on current technical education in the state of Oregon. So it was just fun to see them up there, and I know Mandy presented and stuff, so. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
Been to a lot of track meets. I'm the shot put queen. What else have I done? Baseball game, high school track meet, a couple of middle school track meets, lots of 8th grade promotion planning meetings. Last week and the weekend before, the 8th graders did their gala thing at the community center. So it was a fundraiser for their promotion party, but also money that will transfer over for their, just to continue graduation. And I think that we profited almost $5,000 from it, so that was amazing. That's outside of all the other fundraising that we've been doing. But I won lunch with the principal, and by one, I mean I had to stand there finally take it from Lincoln's little sister because she wanted him to go to detention. So I had my one-on-one with Mike last week, and then I had lunch with Miss Johansson on Friday. And I feel like I've done some other things, but I can't remember. I've taken, oh my God, I took 54 blue bags of cans back last weekend. That's a lot. It's a lot. There's more in my. I mean, the limit might be 15 a day, but I just added a few extra.
Yes. So I was trying to write these down where we were going. So we had our leadership meeting last week. I also went to the play and Hope and Leanna were amazing. When Leanna did Off With Their Heads, the Queen of Hearts, one, I almost started laughing out loud because I've heard that voice a million times. And her and Hope arguing, I've heard that argument a million times. And so it was like imitating art, imitating life all at one time. Quite entertaining. Obviously lots of softball games, softball practice. We had senior night last night, which was extremely happy and sad all at the same time. That's a lot of seniors, so to leave all at one time, 9 is a lot. And we had a couple girls hit home runs last night that haven't hit a home run all season, which was super exciting. I almost cried at one of them, and I'm not an emotional person. I was like, oh my gosh. So that was exciting. Lots of flag football games. You might have heard the girls team on flag football, in our pod is what it's called, is the #1 team. We beat Thurston 2 games, Sheldon 2 games, and South Eugene 2 games to be the #1 team, which is a pretty big deal to beat schools that size. I was making new armbands today because we are going to state this weekend. And Nike is putting on a really cool state kind of tournament on Nike campus for the winners of each pod. So we're going to that this weekend. And I think that's it. If I did anything else, I think.
I didn't do hardly anything compared to you guys. I had a one-on-one with Mike and I did leadership. There's a couple of little, Marilyn stopped by to have me find something, so, you know, she had to go find out. But I haven't done anything else. So, that's it. And I didn't remember to ask this because Candace reminds me often, does anybody have any board requests for future agenda items? Like anything that you want to see on the, and if you don't have to bring it up today, but be thinking about anything else you'd like us to like talk about, if there's items that you want to discuss, at a future date. And then just a quick reminder that we are having budget committee on the 15th. Via Zoom. And for any reason we can't get everything taken care of, we'll have another one on the 22nd via Zoom. So, and then I didn't even see down here that you already had the promotion dates on there, but no, the rest of the calendar for the rest of the years. So, I don't know anything.
Do we not have, board meetings during the summer?
We generally take July off. We meet in June, we take July off and we meet again in August. We have one month that we got hard work.